I did
Good
the
evening.
last time.
Welcome. My name's Alan. I'm one of the 8 people who went on this trip that we will talk about and that the charts cover. And that we know that at the end of this evening, this is what you're going to get out of this, you will want to go there. No question. No question. The real question is, how are you going to go there? And who are you going to take? And how's it going to be made safe and all that kind of stuff. But you have to go there. We live only a short distance from one of the most spectacular places on this entire coast. That's not kidding. We're not kidding. Anybody who's been to the Brooks will tell you that. And so you need to make that part of your bucket list to do that. And if it means getting better at your kayaking, do that. Or canoeing, or whatever it is that takes you in. But don't miss the chance to get up there. So we call it, I'm just going to start with a few remarks. I'm going to turn it over to, and I should just point them out, my colleagues in crime here, John Minkley. And after John, I think maybe I get to do a piece, and then it's Lynn, live. And after Lynn, we go to Jenny Sutton. And taking us out safely is Mike Elson. And the slideshow that you were enjoying earlier was thanks to Heather Jones. Thank you, Heather. She was on the trip. And at the back, Tony Playfair. He's our videographer tonight, and he was on the trip, and he took some video at the end, which will bring it all together, and you won't forget it. So that's the group, 8 of us. What we wanted to say about the presentation tonight is we want to give you a lot of information about this and give you enough to inspire you and all that kind of stuff. We are going to tell you about our trip, which was a bit different. I mean, we didn't plan the trip the way it happened, but it was a spectacular trip. If we'd been thoughtful, maybe we would have planned it like this, but anyway, it worked out fine. It was just a tad more expensive than we thought, but there you go. I'll get to that. So that's why we call this Paddling Around the Brooks, Side Bay to Fair Harbor, or How Helicopters Can Extend the Range. Kayak trips. Dollar signs, right? So maybe when I stop talking, somebody can flip off those lights, yeah, because you'll want to see some of these images. And I wanted to, before John gets underway, he's going to talk about access. I think it's maybe the next one, John. Yeah, that's okay. Don't need to see. Well, there could be maybe one back here or something.
That's good.
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. As long as you can see them. This is the Brooks. I'm not going to say much. This is the Brooks Peninsula. It sticks about 5 miles out into the ocean from the northwest corner of the island, more or less. It was never glaciated. It's a unique environment. It's a marine, provincial, and territorial marine park area. So very, very unique. Lots of unique things about it. What did he said on that? These colorful lines are where we went. That's actually our GPS track from our paddle. So you can see we started up here, which is Side Bay, and we ended up way over there at Fair Harbor. And that's the chart. Now we have charts over here, so later, if you haven't done it already, if you want to talk to us about detailed stuff, please cluster over there and get to know something about the area and how you get there. And then this is kind of gives you the trip in charts from start to finish. And I think with that, these are the stats. Thank you, Jenny. We went, it was about 2.5 weeks, I guess, 3rd to the 21st of July. 8 people. We went about 150 nautical miles altogether, and 17 paddling days, or camping days. We didn't have paddling on 3 days, but we were always busy doing something. And now we're on John's section. Okay, John? I can advance it if you want. Okay. Just touch the right side of that.
This is what it's like. Do I have to point it?
Yeah, roughly in that direction.
Okay, so I'm going to talk very briefly about where we launched from and what other launch places there are to launch from. So we launched from Side Bay in here. The other launch sites you could launch from would be up at Cole Harbor and up at Winter Harbor. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what considerations you might want to look at when you choose which of those launch sites. So now all 3 of those launch sites are within a day's drive of Victoria. It's easy to get to Cold Harbor most easily within a day. You can get to Side Bay within a day. You can also get to Winter Harbor within a day. I was going to go on here. Well, I think I'll go back. I'll just mention this. For the road conditions to Winter Harbor and to Side Bay, there's WFP is a roadinfo.com site that you can go on there, and then sometimes they post current road information. You can also get road information by calling the Port McNeil, their Port McNeil office. You know, the immediate launch, there's information about those launch sites in John Camanus' book, which is really good, and BC Marine Trails has information on each of those launch sites. About Side Bay, the takeaway from Side Bay, if you're thinking of launching from there, is the condition of the road. The last part of that road, the actual Side Bay main, has been decommissioned, and it was not in very good condition when we went on it, and it's likely to get worse. And so, if you're thinking of launching from Side Bay, the thing to do is spend a lot of time researching the condition of the road. Depending what time you're going on, probably somebody from Siska or somebody will know somebody that's gone before you. You know, try and get hold of somebody to get the current state of the road. You know, if you have an accident on the road, you know, your oil pan or something, you get a really bad bump, getting your car out of there is extremely difficult, very difficult to organize, and expensive to organize a tow out of there. So you really need to have a robust vehicle and have good information about the condition of the road. You know, the factors about Side Bay is like wind. 95% of the issue is on the condition of that road, and the other 5% is everything else about the Side Bay. It's like totally the condition of the road. And from what we know now, it's not likely to be very good. You need a very robust vehicle to get in and out. Some things there, like it's protected from, I mentioned there's some surf in the southwest, it's protected from the northwest. Local residents drive and camp there, so when you get to Side Bay, there could be quite a few people there already, because other people may have. And that was an issue for us, because when you get there, we had to carry our stuff quite a ways down the beach to find places to camp. Some people are concerned that there's no services and your car is not secure, but other people say they've been going there for years and never had a problem. It's a nice, people go to Side Bay because you're nicely positioned. It's really quick to get down to North Brooks from there to get to here point of Crabapple. You get there easily within a day, so it's nice that way. If there's strong northwest winds, it's easier to get back to Side Bay and to get out from Side Bay than it is to go up to Winter Harbor, so that's a consideration. But the road conditions are extremely serious. Now, however, we do know that it's a suitable place for dropping off drivers from a helicopter. Easier there. Now, the other...
a different button, John.
What happened?
You touched a different button.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
You shouldn't have given me this down.
Yeah, just the one on the right side.
It's great. Now, Winter Harbor. Winter Harbor, you can, you know, when I went to Winter Harbor one time, we drove to Port Hardy and stayed there, then went into Winter Harbor. But if you leave early, you can get to Winter Harbor in a day. It's good roads. When you get to Winter Harbor, there's services there, there's a store, you know, secure parking, showers, there's some accommodation. We camped at a campsite. The campsite's within walking distance of you know, the store and things. It's about a half-hour walk. And it's a nice campsite. It's a regional campsite. If you forget things, I forgot a toque, so I remembered before we headed off. I was able to buy a toque at the store. It's nice. It's a nice location because you can, depending on the weather conditions, you can go from there. You can go up towards Grant Bay and San Joseph Bay, or you can go south down to the Brooks Peninsula. You can go, the weather's bad outside, you can go to Quatsino Sound. So it's a very good location. There's a lot of options for there. I just mentioned there that even Patty's been up to that region about 5 times, and 4 out of the 5 times they've chosen to launch at Winter Harbor. The one consideration I put there is weather getting back. If there's strong northwest winds, then it can be a problem getting, it can be a problem getting back to Winter Harbor from the Brooks Peninsula.
Probably a cheaper helicopter ride though.
Yeah. So that's a consideration, but in planning for this trip, you need to have lots of time anyways. Like the Brooks Peninsula isn't a trip to go on if you're short of time. And if you built in time for weather days, then the issue about getting back to Winter Harbor is probably not going to be a big issue. You might need to wait a day or two so that you can get back. Cole Harbor is the other option. It's a quicker trip to Cole Harbor than the other places. And from Cole, there's no camping there, but from Cole Harbor, you can get there, park, load up the boats, and get to your first campsite within the first day. You know, and Barry and John Abercrombie did that. They launched from there last summer. So, in fact, there's no camping there. If you launch from Cole Harbor, you really have to pay attention to the currents. This is a narrow passage that the currents will be there. So in all of those preferences, my preference is to launch from Winter Harbor, because it's I like it here. It's a really nice spot. So now some of you may have some questions, more questions, and I think we're saving questions towards the end, and so some of you may have some experience with those launch sites. So that's my part, and I'll pass the baton.
Thank you, John. Yeah, if you have a burning question, we might forget it. Maybe we can get somebody to write it down over there, or you know, we can take it. We just don't want to run out of time for later on. And you'll see there's a bit more of the trip to cover here, so we'll go on. So you won't be able to see this in detail, that's okay. This is the southern end of the entrance to Quatsino Sound. It's called Long Point. So what John was talking about, where you might hit northwest winds very typically out here, and they would come around here and make life uncomfortable possibly at certain speeds, and you might not be able to get back the day you want to. You can see how Side Bay is tucked inside. So from the northwest, excellent protection, and I think it's probably right in here is where the camping is, where the road comes close to the beach. So you're in a bay, you're on the north side of the Brooks, and you're very well positioned to get down to the North Brooks. So let me just see what the next slide is. Oh yeah, good little notes in here to keep us on track. So what I was going to talk about is paddling and hiking from the Crabapple Islands, which is on the North Brooks, where we got to, as I'll say. Something about weather forecasting, because we were preoccupied with that, of course. And then the decision to go or not go around the Brooks. So this is just a bigger scale. Here's Side Bay again. And now you can see some of the Brooks Peninsula. And it comes out here. So you're going around this to get here. Before the trip, and we'll talk about the go, no-go decision, but before the trip, as all good, paddling groups going on trips should, we had a meeting, we talked about what the trip was about, what our expectations were, what we could tolerate. Were we going to go around the Brooks? Well, no. That would be a much bigger trip, and there would be a lot more risk involved, and no, it was the North Brooks. I would call it the North Brooks trip, and there's a lot to see in the North Brooks. Tons to see up there, so let's just get down to North Brooks, and we'll come back slowly. Maybe we could go into Quatsino Sound. It was really nice, and we'll just explore around. That was our discussion. So good to know that even like really nice people who get along well generally and communicate accurately, we completely changed the trip. So you may wonder why. And why would that happen with a group of experienced paddlers who are comfortable with each other? Because in our heart of hearts, we wanted to go around the Brooks. We really did. Come on. We weren't kidding anybody back there. We're like, we have a chance to go around the brooks? Yeah, we're going, right? But we just thought, it's too much. You know, we just aren't gonna take that kind of risk. And so, anyhow, we started out from Side Bay, and some of us more inclined to do the kind of slow exploration. Were, you know, wanting to explore a bit more around here. This is Heater Point, big cave there. You'll see it kind of later. We never got there because we kept going. It was a glorious day. We set off, wonderful conditions, sun shining, not much wind. So we thought, you know, the conditions are right, let's just keep going, because if we get down, if we can get to the North Brooks today, well, that gives us all kinds of options. We can come back to Heater Point, of course. I mean, we're going to be up here for, we had 2.5 weeks. What's the rush, right? We don't have to do that now. So we'll just keep going, and we kept coming and kept coming. And we get down to the North Brooks at, it's going to be right here, these are the Crabapple Islands. And these beaches here, you'll see some photos in a minute, are like drop dead gorgeous. And for going to the North Brooks, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but that's probably the best campsite you could have. You have ultimate protection from southerly winds, wonderful conditions, big wide beaches, lots to do as I'll go on and explain. And you're kind of in close to the sort of edge of the brooks that's connected to the island, so you're not too far out. It would be fairly easy to get back, and that's why it's quick to get there. The Crabapple Island. So this is us looking from actually Side Bay, here where you are more or less. You're looking down at the Brooks Peninsula there in the distance, and one of the headlands that we'll cross on our way there. You see the sea state. Fantastic, right? Here we are. I mean, nothing to worry about. Sky's clearing, hardly any chop in the water, and we're just enjoying ourselves. And this actually is landing at Crabapple Islands on the beach. I mean, it was just like a tropical scene. It was amazing. So we got there, and it probably took us, I don't know, maybe 4 hours or 5 hours perhaps. We weren't pushing it. It was just a really pleasant paddle, but we didn't stop much. A little bit of lunch here somewhere, I think, but that was about it. But now we're in the North Brooks. And this is kind of looking back at, from out towards those islets, looking back at one end of that beach. And you can see a little bit of color in there. Those would be our tents against the tree fringe. And it comes out to a point and goes around equally the other side. So just very, very comfortable. You can see some things happening in the sky there. And we're like, you know, that's pretty unusual, those things that are going on up there in the atmosphere. There's it's quite striking cloud formations, like, interesting, very beautiful and lovely. And then the rains came. And it was a big southerly flow. So southerly flow, well, we were in perfect position, right? We got our tarps up, as you can see, we're against this fringe. It's coming across the brook, so, you know, spending most of its energy. Of course, we're getting wet. But, you know, the wind was, we were protected from the wind big time. It was an ideal place to be. That went on for, I'm thinking 2 days? At least. Yeah, it seemed to go on for a while. So, what are we going to do? What are you going to do when you're there at Crabapple and it's getting wet? Well, you can hike a forest trail. Don't be put off by the bog reference here. It's quite lovely. It's an upland trail, and it goes out and around up into the lower slopes above the beaches. You can explore, that's kind of to the west. To the east, you can explore around what's called Cape Cook Lagoon, which is a big lagoon area. And it is a tidal flow, and it's significant, so you need to make sure you don't get dried out in there. You can get out. And then there's this incredible rocky shoreline from not quite all the way to Crabapple, but a little bit on your way it starts. And there's an amazing rocky shoreline, which John, who'd been there not long before, told us about. And in the right tide and wind conditions, which we had, it's just a wonderful noodling experience to go through these little channels and stuff, all the way up to Cape Cook, which is the point of the brooks. So here's the forest trail. You can see it's wet. We're kind of geared up for that. I think there's maybe coming out of it. Pretty thick. You can already see in the distance, that's just another stretch of the beach. It's not any real distance at all. This is up on top, so kind of sparse and if you know this area, it's a type of vegetation that's very common in that region, where it's really boggy, and so not much grows to any great height. But it's quite lovely, lots of flowers and things. Jenny will say more about that. There's Jenny pointing something out, whose name I won't remember, but maybe she does.
This is Jenny.
That's Jenny. This is Jenny, we're not sure about this. But it's just a lovely thing. You can fish. This is Tony, who's the champion fisherman with us. He pulled this one in. Pretty nice. Caught a bunch of others too along the way, so good on him. So you can fish there. This is looking at the North Brook, so this is kind of from the north looking down. And again, you can see...
Is it from a helicopter?
No, not yet. This is Google Earth. You can see the Crabapple Islets here and how they create these little beaches. And this is Cape Cook Lagoon here and another beach. So there's lots of sandy beaches here that are in closer. You can see that that's typical. Then it's rocky out further, and the same thing happens on the south side, as you can see. And then the middle of the brooks is, looks impenetrable, right? This is a little close-up of that, where we were camped. And this is actually from the marine trails. That'll point that out as a great camp spot, and also the lagoon as another camp spot. But I would recommend that. I like this. This is the 3D view from Google Earth. You get this sense of the folds of the mountains. One of these mountains is called Mount Doom. I'm not making that up. You can look it up on. So I don't know quite how it got that name, but there was a certain like Tolkien thing going on there. It looked pretty primitive, primeval. And this is the rocky stuff. So you won't be able to see that it's not resolving well enough, but you'll see the rock all out here broken up. And so there are all these channels, and they connect, or many of them do. And if you don't have too high a tide or swell or conditions, then you can just explore that. So that's another great thing to do. It doesn't matter if it's raining or not, right? It's a water sport. You're out there anyhow. Actually, I think by the time we start to do this, it had slowed down. And this is some of the rocky shore noodling that's going on. So up close, it looks a lot bigger than on a map. Lots of little caves and things like that coming through the channels. Michael showing his level 4 skills there. It's extreme. And looking out there, I mean, it just is like a playground for this kind of exploration. But you can see the potential for getting yourself into doo-doo, right? So there was really nothing going on when we were here. It was such a nice, easy day for Sea State. And then, you'd sort of stop and study something, and something like this would happen. You're like, oh, I'm glad I'm not there right now, because where would I have been if I had been there? Pitched around. But at a higher sea state or whatever wind or swell conditions, that would be probably quite something to watch. Here we are, just exploring. So I wanted to say something about weather and wind forecasting because, of course, that's the preoccupation. What on earth is the wind going to do? What you need to know is there is no cellular service around the Brooks. Nobody lives there. There's nothing. So you do have VHF radio, and with the VHF radio, in some places, maybe holding it in a certain way or whatever, you can get Prince Rupert. Prince Rupert is the Coast Guard station that we were able to connect to. So you can VHF radio not when you're on the water, of course, as well. We used InReach, an InReach device, and it uses the Iridium satellite network as its system, and they have a weather app that you can, if you have to have a plan of some sort, allowing you to have messages and so on. It's called Dark Sky, which is, if you Google them, you'll find that they're a worldwide weather forecasting service, and you can actually get one of their predictions on your InReach while you're out there via satellite. Kind of good, except we're not real sure about dark sky. What is this dark sky thing? And how reliable is it? We know for sure Environment Canada's forecast areas are like sometimes 100 miles long, or it seems like it is. They're like, north of the Brooks, south of the Brook, and it's almost always gale force winds or something, so it gets a little tedious, but it was good to have another sort of concept, another way to get that communication. By the way, if you want to get details about this, Edgar and I are doing a detailed one on, what's that, next month or a few weeks, Edgar, about electronic aids. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go into it too much tonight, except to say we had it with us, and we used it in conjunction with the Environment Canada forecasts. And then another thing we did, and this came later, but is you can text, using your inReach, you text message to somebody at home who you've talked into being your local weather support person, maybe Mary Sutton or, you know, Rob Zacharias or whoever, and then they do their computer thing at home here in Victoria with all the advantages we have and send you a note back and tell you, this is what it's going to be like for the next couple of days. Maybe. Anyway, after all that's said and done, you make your best guess. And you take a look at the sea state in the morning and try to decide what's happening. Look at the sky and all the rest of it. No, this is just continuous marine broadcast. I think we're all familiar with. That's the inReach, and you use either a smartphone or a tablet to pair it up, Bluetooth, with your inReach, so you can use that as the input-output sort of thing. You have a little more room to use your fingers. So, I think this may be my last. I'm going to talk about emergency. So, group decision to paddle around the brooks. I think I talked about this. We agreed to stay on the North Brook. And then, it turns out Crabapple, who we'd already gotten there so quickly, and it was raining and rained for a couple days, and we were like hunkered down, and then it broke, and it was like gorgeous, and it was so still, so still. You're like, oh, it's gone completely calm. It's inviting us, to go. This is your chance. So the storms ended, really calm, serious discussion. Who wants to go around the brooks? You know, so it's like that sort of discussion goes on, and turned out everybody really wanted to give it a shot. The challenge is from Crabapple to get to around and to some place where you can camp, you know, that's going to be again protected, is like 20 miles. It's a fairly significant paddling day. You got to take all your gear, so you're packing, you're loading, you're moving, and if you ran into bad weather, you'd turn around and come back maybe, or keep on going. I mean, so you just didn't know. But that was the decision we made. One of the things we had was, we just had southerly winds blast up and do all this stuff, and we thought, well, it's turning, right? It's got the calm. It's going to become northerly flow, which is more typical. This is in July. We're here for 2 more weeks. Well, we'd only been there a couple of days. It was like, we've got a huge amount of time here. It's going to turn around again. You know, we can get them back. There'll be a calm, or, you know, light winds from the south or something. No big deal. No, that didn't happen. Those northwest winds stayed in place for the next 2 weeks. And we were trapped in paradise. So I'm getting ahead of my story because others will pick that up. Emergency contacts, I just wanted to say this, and I guess this will get, I know Tony's recording it, and you can have this, I mean, basically the emergency channel, light stations you can reach where they are. Winter Harbor, there's some numbers here. There are local channels that are used by the people in Quetzino Sound and in Cayuga, local VHF channels, so you can try raising them, and then there's these water taxis in various places that you can try to reach. So there's some phone numbers here. If you want, we can make that available differently as well. And useful sources of information I found was CPAC Guide Alliance. They have a number of lists and things that you can check out, and BC Marine Trails. And that's it for me. Now it gets really interesting.
Right now.
Ben's going to take us around the brooks.
Okay, so I want to push the right button.
The right side.
The right side of that one. Okay.
Yeah, just ask John.
I have quite a short section, but it was a significant section because we have made the decision to go around the brooks. And it's a feeling inside when you're setting off, because really, once you get past Cape Cook, there's not a whole lot of option on turning around. This, by the way, is a screenshot from Navionics, which happens to be one of my favorite tools to use. It's on my phone, so although we found ourselves in an area where I did not have any paper charts for, because we weren't going around the brooks, I did have navionics, which helped a little bit for charting. So we are going around, we've decided to go around Solander. Solander is that rock at the end of Cape Cook that they do weather forecasting from. I believe it gets the highest winds in North America, or in Canada anyways. I may be wrong on that, but it's significant up there. And you can see the contours of the land beneath the water there. It gets active there also. It's not to be paddled around lightly. And, oh yeah, I looked it up, because I've been saying Solander all these years, and I wanted to find the correct pronunciation. I also found out that Solander also makes, the Solander case is named after him. And this is what I did not want to go home in, was the Solander case, after making the decision to go around. And here we are approaching Solander. It's just, I don't know what I thought it was going to look like. I just thought it was a rock out there. But as you get closer, it just gets bigger and more looming.
Do you want me to play this?
Yeah. Did it just jump right over that? Oh, this is the video.
Yeah,
This one I haven't seen. Somebody sneaked it in here. Am I right?
This is Tony's work, I think.
On our way, approaching Solander Island.
That's amazing that you can get there.
Lots of seals we can hear.
Don't get there every year. Yeah.
We didn't see any puffins. This area is known for puffins too, I think.
Down
We
to
didn't
Paradise
see them.
Beach after this. Nordstrom Creek for a rest first.
Just tell me when you want to play it.
Well, I don't
That's
know
really
how long
weird
it
you can
takes.
see
I
any
didn't
puffins.
plan on it.
Please
Weird
not.
that you didn't see any puffins. They're the coolest birds. Yeah.
You can see we're just getting a bit of ocean swell, but nothing scary.
Beautiful day. Sea lions.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
Is that enough? Okay.
You'll hang on, you'll see in a second here. Or did I already pass back it? It's not a castle. It's the,
So these are the sea lions.
yeah, it's the weather station.
Oh,
We're taking the weather.
it's a really calm day.
Do the big guys ever come and investigate?
You know, it's great for us.
We gave him a bit of a berth. There was a couple guys that essentially were saying, "Don't make me give him a berth." Okay.
Yeah, it's a little more active around the backside too. And you just know there's nothing beyond that.
What time was this when you were approaching?
Pretty early in the day, was it?
Yeah, we always leave the beach pretty early, deep winds.
10 maybe, that sounds right.
Sure, yeah. Took about an hour to get down there, didn't it? Or maybe a couple hours. Okay, if I hit the button now, will it advance? There's the weather station.
Want me to stop?
Oh, there's the weather station, yeah. Right
I see it there.
Yeah. But it's a big, for boating, they should have called it Mount Dew. It's just what it feels like. It fills you. It just, it's pretty special.
Heading for the South Brooks.
There we go.
That's it. Okay, let's see if I
Okay,
can
can I
get
go
this.
now?
My team and I always had trouble not picking
That's
up
a whole
on.
other thing. I think I have to bring this up again. Okay.
Okay, now there's the station. It was very green. Yeah, interesting. And then we carry on. Now, a lot of the shoreline looks like this. It's, there's a little ribbon that looks fairly easy to walk along. guarded by all these rocks. There are a couple places where you could get ashore, but not a whole heck of a lot, because a lot of it is guarded by rocks like that. And then we decided to take a break at Nordstrom Creek, which is roughly halfway around the brooks. And so we do. We get in there. Now, for the life of me, I cannot remember why my boat is floating off there. I must have been desperate for a pee or something. Anyway, there's a group, you can see in the background there's a group of hikers, which we saw when we first got to the Crabapple Islands. Saw them hiking en route and then at the Crabapple Islands. And we pull up, and this lovely young lady comes over and says they have missed their pickup. And Alan sends an in-reach to their pickup, which is Leo Jack from Cayuga. He was supposed to pick them up at Jacobson Point, and they were way late, and they only had a day's worth of food left. So anyway, she wanted a pickup there, and Alan has sent off that message. Now, just to give you an idea of what the Brooks is like, they started off at where my 0 mark is and crossed over the top and down to point 4, which is Nordstrom Creek. This has taken them 10 days and they have gone 16 nautical miles. They had a big long machete with them, and they camped under tarps and things because of the rain and the wind. It was just awful for them. But they were still all in good spirits. And here we are again. Now, I put this one in here because I could not believe how good she looked.
How old was she?
I thought she was pushing 40. There was a big argument on it. They said, no, she's only around 30. But anyway, that was the biggest argument I think we had on the trail. So anyway, we carry on.
Did she get picked up?
Yeah, well, there's more to the story. But, so we carry on, and there's a helicopter, and I thought, oh, more hikers that have needed a rescue.
Poor people.
And in fact, they've got a charter helicopter and they're there for a picnic.
No.
Yeah, because I had asked when the helicopter picked us up if they had another rescue, but he said, no, they do charters. Yeah, no, maybe I'll back up and tell you what happened with the hikers. Leo Jack, I talked to Leo a couple of weeks later because I was doing a backpacking trip, and he was water taxiing us. He says, I'm going there. So he lets the Coast Guard know, and the Coast Guard sent a helicopter for them. And I have no idea what it cost them. I don't know how much is your taxpayer dollars at work and how much they had to shell out. But at least they got back safely. It turns out that the next section would have been pretty easy for them to hike out. It might have taken them a couple of days, but the rest of the shoreline is really looked doable from everything that we saw. Anyhow, so we paddle along, we come to Clerk Point, which is the area, if you're paddling around the brooks, that you really need to pay the most attention to. It's like a big long shelf. All those white dots are rocks. And the rollers come in there, and the whole shoreline along there, quite a ways out until you get into the deeper white water, can be, was fine when we were there. We gave Clerk Point a respectful berth, but that area there can be really dangerous. You really need to pay attention, especially if you're going back the other way and the winds are coming from the north, which was one of the, and we talked about it quite a bit on the beach. It's like, we can go back, but we really have to be respectful of Clerk Point. And yes, anyways, we carry on down South Brooks and come to Paradise Beach, which truly is a lovely, beautiful sand beach. You can't see my tent, you can't see Alan's tent. We foolishly camped on a bit of a point there, and then when the northwest winds did start up, they blasted us. He stayed put. I think I moved in behind the shelter of the trees. And that is it for me. Jenny, you're up.
So, I have a lot of pictures, but I'm going to zip through them because it's a lot of people stuff. Just about Brooks, it's an ecological reserve, and I'm not keen as a native plant person to have trails set up there and people tromping like those people did. And they got hammered by that southeast storm that we were hunkered in. But it's it's just, it's like Calvert Island. This bog country that's up, above the beach, it's so precious and it's so easy to tramp on, as we did. But there was a trail there. But there is no trail across the brooks, and it is an ecological reserve. And what's the story of ecological reserves? What are they there for?
I know the sun.
Okay, so that's that. I'm a plant person, there we go, what can I say? Anyway, now, where's Alan? What button do I push? Right?
The right side.
Oh, that, the right side of the ring.
You want to go back? It's the
God,
left
I
side.
hate this. These things terrify me.
Yeah, I know, but.
Okay, I'll just put this up again and just to remind everybody of where we went. Okay, so I'm going to be just talking about this area here. And it was paradise. So this is, so Clark Point, and this is where we camped, just in here. Okay, so. And I've got, Alan put these on for me. I have no idea how to do these things. And so we were camped in here, but there's, this is where the water taxi drops you. For some reason, that's what Leo does. And then you have to load your boats and paddle about 2 miles to get to camping. Why he doesn't take you somewhere else. And that's just to blow up. We were in here tucked in behind his truck. And again, there's Jacobson where Leo drops you, the water taxi guy from Fair Harbor. And if you do that, then you have to paddle around. You can camp here. They call it Jacobson Point because that's Jacobson Point. I don't recommend that personally because this is actually a gully and the northwest winds come from the outflow. So we were nice and tucked in. So that's just, Lynn's first shot was looking east. This is looking west. We've got all the reef around there and our rocky islands are out there. And that's looking east. Different day, obviously. I think we had a couple of spots of rain and then we had this for, I can say that I've never been to South Brooks. I've been almost there and we didn't get there. And I'm so excited to be there and I know it like the back of my hand now because we had 7 camp nights there. So be careful what you wish for. That's where we set up the kitchen when we started. Because of that wind that Lynn mentioned, there's that's Alan, and then Lynn was, is that you, Lynn? Anyway, Alan stayed put, but I'll tell you, he got fairly blasted. And there's a lovely creek, you'll see pictures over here. And then that long beach going that way, another beach and a bay here that gets some surf. So on our camp days, we could hike either direction. Just kind of fun. So we could head east, west, or go south. So we did all 3, of course, because we could. And then there was the islets out in front that had turned out. They had some neat slots and amazing intertidal. Oh, John and Michael had a wonderful day. So we did 2 paddles heading east towards Johnson Lagoon. If I hit the left one, does it go back? If you all be over here. So Johnson Lagoon is up here, through that slot right there. And the currents run there. I'll tell you a bit more about that story in a second. So this is us heading out. Just look at the weather. I mean, what can we say? And I'm just going to zip through. So lots of little slots to go through. I have to get in just because the weather is so good. And then there was pocket beaches like that. You can see there's a little bit of surf, but not much. But remember we had northwest winds, so we were totally protected. You wouldn't be landing there. And so we had these big slots. That gives you perspective. Michael was exploring every nook and cranny. And there's a neat archway. Okay, cool. And that's, I'm in there, and that gives you perspective of this one, because there's, I think that's Deb. And then there's the tunnel. It's a very narrow slot. This is where I learned how to read something on a chart. So that's Lynn sitting there, and it was too strong an ebb coming out. Michael tried to get through, and if Michael can't get through, then we're not getting through. But it was kind of fun to play there, wasn't it? Yeah. And then along, you can actually see a bit of color there. It's right there. And because of that flow of water and the nutrients, there was really nice intertidal. Okay? Of course, that's what I'm always looking for. So, anything to do with nature. That's one of Deb's shots with the neat gooseneck articles. And this, we went another day, timing it with the flood so we could get in. So there's me just coasting through with going about 4 knots. And Deb, Allen, and I carried on right up to see what was around the final corner. It wasn't terribly, like I wanted to go in to see what was there. Yeah, that's about what you saw. So we didn't see a bird, we didn't see a fish, we didn't see, but it was pretty. See the flowers, it's arnica. So this is what I learned. See, right here, this little thing here, at springs, all lowercase, slack water is 2 hours after high water. So we went in with high water, right, on the flood. So slack is 2 hours after. Well, because the spring, it wasn't spring tide, it was lowercase springs. I thought, what are they talking about? Well, we learned we had to wait 2 hours to get out. Lynn said she knew about it, but we went in anyway.
Yep.
But can you understand what I'm saying? Like, normally when you write spring tide, it's a capital S. It's not springs, all lowercase. So I was like, thrown. So that's what we had to wait to go in. It not only was flowing really fast, there was probably at least a foot drop. And it was very pretty. Yeah. So we all had to go up and have a bit of a closer look. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, here's Alan's video. We'll just show part of this. It's blurry at the start, but then it gets.
So this is the entrance exit to Johnson Lagoon. At about 3.
Very different than when we went in, eh?
If you open at 3, it's not, is it, in there? Yep.
No, that's where the tide is, not when.
Yeah, the current is really piling through there. Look at that. Yeah, we're not telling us that. There were a few attempts.
So we got to loll about in the sun and wait, and we were home for dinner. I might have been off.
Is that a flood flow? Is that flooding or heavy?
Yeah,
That's no, that's the flood coming in. So we came in on
We were
it,
trying to get out.
and that just kept going because of that springs, which was actually means spring tides. So now you know what that little piece on the chart means, as do I. Okay, so now, so our hiking. So that's Alan, and Alan's ready for anything because he's got his coffee in his left hip pocket and he's got his bear spray in his right hip pocket. Just making sure it's there, right? It's balanced.
I'm ready.
Ready for anything. Oh, and the tufts, the boots.
Extra toughs.
Extra tufts.
Ever been to Southeast Alaska?
When you do trips like this, gum boots and umbrella are really part of the gear. So there's our campsite over here. And I'll talk about the creek later. There's the rocky reef and the islets right there. And we're off on our first hike east towards Jameson Point. Okay? And there was logs. You can imagine the storms that come in to build the logs up like that. So that's Deb, and of course our young guy Michael has to balance with everything he can find. And that trail to the east, we were lucky that there were some campers actually at Jacobson Point, and they'd been through a couple of times, and they cut back some of the salal, but and there were some ropes and stuff, so it was a scramble and stuff, but it was very pretty. And, you know, some slots, really nice slots. So you just had to go up and over the headlands and then back down to the beaches. It's just Tony showing the logs with his glasses. And that's that campsite area I was talking about. The water's pretty still there. The winds come down through there. And that's where those guys were camping.
So that's Jacobson's Point.
Yeah, so Jacob's Point, they call it that, but the actual rocky point is just past there. That's having a break. And there's Alan collecting rocks. And that's Alan's stash back at camp. That's my little stash there in the bowl. And I think, Heather, did you bring your?
I have a few, and I brought my rock.
We have our pet rock. They were really beautiful. And you know, when you have all day in camp, we went back a couple of times. Sorry.
We called this Elevenses Beach because I don't know if you know John here, but he can't get past 11 o'clock in the morning without eating. So he has Elevenses, and that's as far as he got before he had to eat, so we called it Elevenses Beach. So about, you know, an hour's hike from Paradise Beach is this great rocky beach.
So, you know, the thing with camping on the West Coast, whatever the storms are that go through, whatever's written in John Commandus' book, whatever's on the BC Marine Trail site with the campsites, it can be totally different depending on those things called logs. Sometimes they'll say there's enough room for 6 tents, and there's like, okay, maybe that was 2 years ago. So it's really important, if you can, you can do site assessments for them to update things and let them know. They really appreciate that. So then we had a day where we paddled west towards Crabapple Point, and there were some really neat rocky reefs and paddle-throughs. There's a nice swell coming in. This is John. Anyway, we got to a point where the swells were getting more serious, so we decided to hightail out of there. So, but we still did like 7.5, 8 miles that day.
And Jenny, tell us the winds coming through. Those channel through the woods.
Gap winds.
Gap winds. That's what we did when we came along.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll say that. So there's gaps in the brooks, like valleys. And if it's a strong wind, as it was on the north, it finds a way through. So you paddle along like it was there quite calmly. And then it would really, you could see it at a distance. Water's very disturbed. And it was the end of one of these valleys. And a gap wind was finding its way through and just really pitching it up. That was along that paddle. That was one of the reasons we turned back.
I'll check my notes.
Okay.
Because that swell is from the wind curling around.
Yeah, no, this is, swell is what you're showing, but
Yeah.
we also found a gap.
So camp life. Remember, we had 2 days onshore, besides the hiking. So we have lots, because of the creek, which is right there, and it was flowing nicely, we had endless fresh water. I mean, and it was just like 10 steps from Alan's tent. It was just amazing. So, you know, filtering water, we had no lack of water on the trip, that's for sure. And I've never done so much laundry on a trip because it was just dry, right? That's Heather and Tony's credit for that laundry. And morning coffee.
Yeah.
You know, that's important. Meals. Lynn is the chef, call her cook, chef extraordinaire. I'm not prepared to spend the time she says she doesn't spend cooking a meal, so everybody's learning that. Okay. Heather was super organized. I mean, she's got her own little folding leg table, and she was just like, she sets herself up that she's not having to bend over. I mean, just amazing. Well done. And that was a pancake breakfast. So that's sous chefing. When we do group meals, and it's just a choice we make, so people take turns. And you're either the chef or the sous chef, or you've got days off. So Campfires every day, and then Michael did this amazing dessert, so that's been foil wrapped, and he did them on the coals. Oh, get the wrong one. And then we had cones, like ice cream cones, but it wasn't ice cream. Marshmallow, sort of like s'mores in a cone. And when you see his boat and what he can fit in, we were like blown away that he did that. Look at Heather's all happy. And then Alan seems to like doing these pies every year. So that's my frying pan, and that's what he tries to do. You know, it's one of those mixes where you get it in a plastic thing and you shake it, put my blueberries on top. So we don't suffer. Black bear. Okay, we had this very friendly bear. He or she would come in one end of the beach, eventually see us, go up into the woods like that, go around, and then some of the group did another walk west, an extra walk west, and they had a close encounter. We don't have any pictures of it, but I understand that Lynn was very quick on the draw getting her bear spray ready. Okay. So I heard a rumor. So this is Deb that can't be here because she's on her way to Indonesia tonight. And Michael, you know, just anytime we can be burning off energy. So that's part of the creek. And then Tony and Michael fishing. that pole we found, we had to leave it behind, but that's from a boat. You know, she used to hook the buoy, you know, to latch onto. Yeah, but they were just horsing it. And then Alan had a broken rudder cable. That's what a broken rudder cable was. So a good thing to learn how to fix that. So we're having a lesson. It was actually, we made it look amazingly easy. And then we did have a little, that's not for some. And then I was still getting over a ruptured rotator cuff, and look at me now. And I had these blow-up exercise balloons, and so everybody was having a go to see, because you have to go to bounce it around like this and coordinate. So everyone had a try. There's the creek. You can see there's Alan's tent. We started with the kitchen there, and we ended up moving it over here because of the wind coming through. And that's looking the other way, and there's this lovely shade spot up here in the tree. But like somebody had camped there. They sort of ran over the sand. And, so then we have people sitting in the shade. You know it's warm when people are sitting in the shade. But Deb's doing crosswords. Lynn's contemplating life.
We're watching.
John's definitely contemplating. He's got the extra tufts on too. It was part of the, you know, fashion. Michael was always exploring. That's the reef right up in front of our place. And we always need channels if the tide went in and out. And of course, in the tidal pools, I have to go look. That's the John Crane anemone. Those are the aggregate anemones. And every night, campfire. So there's our camps up here. The creek's over here. That is east, right? And there's those rocky islets with the river. I mean, it's called Paradise Beach. I mean. And we had it to ourselves for 5 of the 7 nights.
Is that a boat there?
Yeah. It's some kind of fishing boat tucked in, wasn't it? So we knew it was still rough. I mean, we knew it was rough, you know, around brooks, so we couldn't get back. So we then hiked west. Right? It was easier hiking, and this has reminded me a bit of San Joseph Bay with the stacks. Lots of logs scrambling, but it was a lot more open. Huge, giant fireweed. And that's the bear that they had, but I gather the bear actually sat and said, well, I'm not going anywhere, you guys better decide what you're doing. Red columbine native, that's their stonecrop sedum. What's that called, Mary? Aster. The red paintbrush and yarrow, some bush with nice berries. that's a harebell, and that's the beach coming back. Okay, so there was lots of flowers to keep me happy, and lots of beach to keep everybody else happy, but, you know, the happy was, okay, day 3, like, you know, we can't stay here forever. The wind was not stopping. What do we do? So our group has always done collaborative decision making. We don't sort of have a leader that, you know, makes those decisions. And I mean, I was having a great time because I got to read some of my books, and I stayed up in my diary. And, you know, it was the most relaxed trip I'd been on. But, you know, people were getting antsy with good reason, and so started thinking, how are we going to get out of here? You know, we got to get back to the cars. And the next pull-out point was Fair Harbor. Right? That was so we get to Fair Harbor. How do we get from Fair Harbor out to the highway, up and back in past Port Alice on that god-awful road, get the cars and come back out? So there was thought, well, maybe there's somebody, when we get to Fair Harbor, we'll just like, you know, find somebody over there. Well, that's not really practical. And then Lynn's boyfriend, Morley, you know, by Enrich, oh, well, I'll come up and get you, because I guess he was bored at work or something. And then there was a thought of a float plane, which I'll go up there because Lynn's going to come. So when we were discussing it, you know, when you got 8 people, we normally go with 6. I mean, there's extra people and who wants to do what. Started talking about it. So our choices were hitching a ride or Morley offered float plane, and then Lynn, you know, she's done a lot of backpacking off the west coast, and she's done water taxis, she's done float planes, and she suggested there's also helicopter. And I think, I don't know how we started that, so that conversation, like with the Coast Guard contacted first, and of course the Coast Guard's in Prince Rupert, and they was like, well, where's Brooks? So we knew, you know, we were like maybe not going to get a lot of help there. And then I think, but you get the information on an airline, UK Airline, and you tried to contact them.
Yeah.
But Mary said she then sent us some stuff by Enreach, you know, the texting, 162 characters. So my sister Mary did some homework and sent some stuff. And I don't know why that went south, but anyway, then the thought was a helicopter, and so then I said, oh, we've got Jim in Port Hardy, friend of ours from Ours of Alice days. And so we had to Enreach Mary, because I didn't have his number or anything, and Mary finally got hold of Jim and gave us a contact.
Yeah. And
then Jim booked the helicopter for us, gave us 2 choices of times and days, and then we knew how long it took us to get to Fair Harbor, and so we picked 6 a.m. flight on, or 6:30 a.m. on whatever day. So it did happen.
And roughly the cost.
Well, that's when it was nice to have 8 of us. Is it 2,200?
Yeah, I think so.
About 2,200. But the 4 drivers had the trip of a lifetime, as you will see. I had helicoptered over that area already. So anyway, the thing, remember Alice said getting reception, so I didn't get involved, but they were down on the beach trying to, you know, get cell service and stuff. And so we always do a group photo, and we found the thing with the group photo is that, I don't know why I did the job, I think they just like see me run to go get in the picture.
It's
hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, so I set it up with my little camera, and it was mad run to go. Yeah, anyway, we always have that picture, and after all our collaboration getting things, we were still friends, which is great. So that's the end of my section. It's like, time to go to bed, folks, put the fire up. And then it's over to Michael.
So we were just having a chuckle here about the Prince Rupert Coast Guard, because the mighty Brooks Peninsula, which is etched on all of our minds, and when we're calling in, trying to make some travel arrangements, figuring out what the Coast Guard Prince Rupert, it's like Brooks. What would that be near? You know that? Not ringing a bell, not ringing a bell. Vancouver Island, okay, yeah, I think I know where that is. And then you're the Coast Guard. So, yeah, that worked. It was very comforting to think that if you were calling, we're in distress. Where? Yeah. So I have a caveat. My friends who I was so lucky to do this with did all the work putting this together. I never answered anybody's emails. I never got back to anybody until about 2 days ago and said, sure, I'm in. I'll do a piece if there's a piece to be done. So all the work has been done by others, and I'm just coming up here. And then I look at it and I think, but distance-wise, I get like half the trip. I'm not sure how that happened.
You're fast, though.
Good, yeah, I'm fast. So, going South Brooks to the Bunsby. So we headed off, and it was terrible. There were swells and sea monsters, and so off we go. And it was a gorgeous day, and we paddle off. So we need a laser pointer. So we're coming from here, and we kind of get to Jacobson's Point, and then we're heading over, and we're coming through around here into Battle Bay, and there was some fun stuff poking around in here, and some flowy bits that flowed a little more, and I got caught on some kelp and got dumped. But it was all good fun, and I lost a hat, which you never found. It's all Alan's fault.
But you rolled up.
And so, where are we? Yeah, so as we come around, and then we were looking for some fish weirs or nets up in here, which we never did find because we couldn't get up close enough. And that was Battle Bay. And I recall there was some good moods about how far we went, and people looking for washroom breaks and not finding them. And eventually we landed. It looked like there could have been some really good camping in there, but there was a group of some adults and some kids. It actually looked like a few people. So after having, I think we had lunch there, and then we came across, and on the outside, and a better slide. No. There's this interesting place right in here called Green Head. Now, there were so many photos and stuff, I could have added some, but it's this rather large, phallic, green head that it's kind of neat. But as we come around, anyway, we're looking for a camp spot in the Bunsby's. So we come around, and it is at Cautious. Yeah, Cautious. So we came around, and that actually puts us around here and in there on this little piece. Now, I was actually surprised after all I'd heard about the Bunsby's. There was this other island that was supposed to be the Primo, but somebody was already on it. So we were looking around. Actually, we spent quite a bit of time paddling hither and yon and around here. Maybe there's a better spot, because it didn't really look like there was a whole lot of room for all our tents. But we managed back in the woods, and we did get everybody in there. But if you're in a large group, I wouldn't say, I didn't see a whole lot in the Bunsby's that says, let's plant a great big group here. So we spent a couple of days in there, and I suppose one of the highlights for everybody in the Bunsby's had to be in Mr. Meekley's 71st birthday. And so we had a rah-rah for John, and there must have been a gift and a cake or something. I don't recall. But anyways, we at least did sing. Some beautiful stuff all in here, floating around. I think it was on, it was either here or here. Lynn had spotted an anchor, so I scurried up and got this anchor, because it was a good anchor, but I don't know, it probably weighed 15 pounds at least. It was about this big, and it folded up, so for the rest of the trip, I don't have a lot of room in my boat, but I did manage to cram in this anchor, which I took home. And I still have it. It's a very good anchor. And so we did spend, and then we went up into this little Hollywood. I'll get to a slide in that in a minute. Coming up around in there. In here saw a number of otters, some eagles just right down where you can see there's some great sea life in there, so that was pretty cool. This was from our campsite looking out, so it was really pretty, but it was pretty shady. I don't think that we got a whole lot of sun there, as I recall. And the tide came up really far. When the tide came up, there was no room on this side down. There was a little trail to the other side where we would go have fires at night. So the water would come right up to our boats there. And you can see we would be tucked in. So when we got up to this little Hollywood, and I had a whole pile, the bat stars and the moon snails, they were every color and shape, and they were just thick. And we were there at low tide, and it really was phenomenal. It was a sea life highlight for me. It was just gorgeous. So after we left the Buns Feast, we headed down, and there's an island here called Thomas Island. So the Buns Feast are up here, and we're leaving, and we just sort of came straight through and then to Spring Island. But at Thomas Island, there's this very cool, I don't know who knew about it, but a big hole right in the middle of the island, which wasn't that easy to see. But once you got in there, you couldn't actually get through it. But it was pretty spectacular. It was a giant hole that you couldn't get through. But if you could have, you certainly could have crawled through it, and it would have been cool. Again, this was a very calm day. We came through, came all the way in and then and around, and camping on Spring Island, which many of us had been on before. We got there, it wasn't a very long paddle, so some of us stayed there. Al and I headed into Cayucot, which is just over here, in the afternoon, and it was really foggy, as I recall. And then the next day, actually this was on our way to Spring Island. There was some really cool cloud formations, like on a number of days, and this doesn't really do it justice, but just the way the water bounced, and just some very cool stuff. So the next day I think was we were going into Cayucot just to have a look over. Where was it, John? Was it over here? Where was your Stonehenge?
On this side.
It was on this side, yeah. It was very cool. It was low, and it really did, again, kind of reminded you of somewhere between Stonehenge and Lord of the Rings. There was this very cool, a bunch of these rock formations in a big circle. It was quite a large area, but not so large that it didn't look like it was a single feature. And so we kind of noodled in and out of there, and that was good. On the beach, John taking some time to smell the roses. He'd gotten a little pocket kite. Wasn't that a birthday gift? It was. And it flew pretty good because there was lots of wind actually on Spring Island the way we were set up. Some were out of the wind a little better, some of us less so. And then the last night, I don't know if it was just the last, we were getting blown pretty good. The wind was howling in there, and we were leaving in the morning, so I, in the end, moved my tent as well to a less windy spot, so for packing up. But it's a very cool spot, Spring Island, because you've got, you're kind of protected if the wind isn't coming in, so I guess that's a bit of an oxymoron. But you've got this great pebble beach. It's a nice place to have a fire, and you have this lovely lookout in toward Cayucot.
And good hiking from there.
And good hiking, yes. And then so we hiked across the island because it's West Coast Expeditions.
Yeah, Dave, somebody.
Yeah, Dave Pinnell. And so, what is it, about a mile maybe? Something like that. Anyway, you walk through the woods, and it's a gorgeous trail, and again, for an island, the ability to go walking somewhere is always nice if you've been paddling. So the two things I loved about Cayucot in this cabin, or sorry, restaurant, they served pie. Alan was fixated on their pie, so the afternoon we went in, he ordered a pie, and couldn't believe that I wouldn't order a pie. Like, who in their right mind wouldn't order a pie? So I had some fries, and you can see the menu. It wasn't a total gougery. Alan went back, insisted everybody go for pie the next day, so back they went. But it was also odd that there was a number of tributes to the Queen, and I have no idea why, but there was this but I don't know if the rest of you recall it, there was 2 or 3 other things about the Queen in a little restaurant in the middle of nowhere called Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, so I'm not sure what the Queen thing was about, but thank you, Your Majesty. Oh, and in Kayuka there was also a store. Since I lost a hat, that's the reason I'm wearing this hat. Identical to the Siska hats, except instead of saying Siska with more stitching, it says Kayuka. Instead of paying $15 for a Siska hat, you're looking at a $33 ball cap. Now, I say that somewhat facetiously, but a number of years ago, doing a course with Michael Pardee, and we were in Zabellis, and we were in a hotel, and he called the owner over, and he said, so what's your experience with kayakers? And the guy said, they're the worst. And he wasn't kidding. He said, they're cheap, they come in, they put like 40 people in a room, it's dirty, they bring all their own food, they don't buy anything, and they go off. And so he really, sucked the seeds about, if you're in these communities and something goes wrong, it's probably search and rescue stuff that's coming out of these. So it really is a good idea to try to support these communities. So I always try to pick up something when I'm in there. I was in Winter Harbor, I got this, and you pay some extra money, but I hadn't thought of it like that because I'm sure I was one of these people not spending a dime in, and it was a good life lesson.
Buy pie.
Buy pie, or buy pie. We all have. So from there, after a couple of days, we now are making our way home. So our route home was leaving Spring Island, we cut across, we cut up through past Union Island, through here, and then cut around to just by the peninsula. We had lunch, and then you come around further again, and you have to go all the way around, and then you come into Fair Harbor. And I've been there before, but it always surprises me is when you come and you think, okay, you're almost done. It's quite a long harbor. It actually takes you quite a while, and you keep thinking, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it, let's be done. But it's beautiful. And then here we are landing. There's Alan getting out of his boat. I wouldn't say that it was the most lovely beach. I mean, it's kind of a little rocky area. There's boats and stuff that you're trying to get through.
Some found it better.
Some found it better. It's true. And then it's a gorge. I mean, just look at that. I mean, that's paradise. I can say, a couple reasons I took this is it's Fair Harbor, and that was cool. I have never seen so many Ford. I'm not talking 150s. There was hardly any of this. 250s and 350s mostly, and this is just a tiny bit. It's a big lot of, because people come here to fish and stuff, and it's like, wow, that is a lot of big Ford trucks. So then, pulled our kayaks apart. There's a campsite, and I don't know if you recall, but it seemed like a bit of a walk to the campsite with a lot of gear. Not for some of us. For some of us, but by the time we got there, we got our stuff. But you definitely, you had a bit of a glow on by the time you got to the campsite. And as you heard, and I guess somebody else will come, I guess, and really take us home in the helicopter. But by the time we got, it wasn't until Kayuka that we actually finalized all the details on this helicopter. And so 4 people at 6 a.m. Woke everybody in the campsite up. And so we did hear from a couple of people, well, some were away that were less than enamored. But what do you have? Now, I couldn't talk, I wanted Alan to ride in this. We didn't get a good view, but he wouldn't go. So anyways, into the helicopter, and off they went.
I put that in there.
And Tony put that in
That's
there?
my GPS track of when we were going in the helicopter, and you can see he gave us a little sightseeing tour right in the middle there. See, he's pretty.
So where is he taking me?
This is just before Heater Point, the cave.
That's coming back into the
Yeah.
cave.
So see how he's right in the center there?
Yeah,
You'll see why when the video
okay.
goes.
You fly through
So
it.
here is, Tony did this amazing video. This is what you get for $2,200. Couldn't hear yourself think.
What are you shooting? What are you taking a picture with? Camera? Just your camera?
Yeah, my little.
You can almost see the pie there, I think.
There's a fresh water source at Battle Bay too, apart from the documentary.
Did you see evidence
We're
of
going to see the
oak in
difference
there?
in the weather between
Elk?
going
Elk,
to the
there should be
sunshine
elk
and then
somewhere.
get almost with the rain
Yeah.
across the
Didn't
road.
see any.
It really tells you how that landmass affects the weather.
Especially up in the areas like that.
Yeah.
It's where the hikers went. Yeah.
104 knots.
A little bit faster than traveling.
Fresh water.
Yeah.
That make feed down? Or is it just self-contained?
I think it was self-contained.
Shows you the sandbar and you can't get caught.
Solander Island's in the fog there somewhere.
I think you guys were pretty lucky to make it around.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's always that north wind, west wind.
What kind of weather grounds a helicopter? What's wind strength grounds a
I don't know.
So that's what the water is like when there's northwest wind blowing, as opposed to what we had.
She's like, did you see Heater Point Cave? Where, no, oh, I can show you that. There it is. We'll just go around the other side and see the other side of it.
How wide is that, Gary? How wide is that?
I don't know, get the helicopter down there and you'll find out.
That's what we're doing. I was zoomed in there. I shouldn't have zoomed in. I wanted to see more of the cave, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you quite natural. Of course you would.
Or the bits flying around.
Just bark off the
Vegetation.
logs off the beach.
It's pretty close.
Just right there, that's the campsite for everyone. A short walk.
Always got to do a circle before you land, right?
Wake up another bunch of campers.
The cars were parked up there.
You can't camp either side of that creek. We camped on the west side, which is where the locals with the 4x4s were. It would be better to keep on the other side of the creek.
There's always a certain amount every trip you take. I wish we would have done this just a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just go, oh, yeah, we could have, but we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised the Rotterdam draft didn't blow a tent away.
Yeah.
Is that real time?
No, I cut some out.
You have the keys?
That's what, okay.
So then these lucky people got to go from Side Bay and drive 5.5 hours. And as John kept imploring that you needed a very sturdy vehicle to do this. But what he failed to mention was we were in 4 small cars. And there was lots of bounce. Ooh, ooh. Well, that one didn't sound too bad. And then they came all the way back, and then we loaded up our stuff, and after that 5.5 hours, then we headed back to Victoria, and that must have been another,
We just got the
what? Oh, you did, oh, we went all the way home.
Oh, you went all the way
Yeah. That was
Hardcore.
quite a while. So I'll turn back to you now, but I just want to tell a little, there were so many amazing things on it. When we were on Paradise, and they pointed out those rocks out in front, I spent a bunch of time out there. The sea life was amazing, all the little channels, some rock hopping and stuff. But John and I were in there one day, and I'm trying to get a picture of the sea anemone, and I keep washing like this, and I'm getting in, and the cover over, and I couldn't get it. And in a very philosophical voice, I hear, Michael, when you have a minute? Yep, just say, John. Yeah, anytime when you have a minute. And I look over, and there's John in the water in his boat. It wasn't like, hey, can I get your attention? Yeah, just give me a minute. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you.
No, we don't want to close it off yet. This is the time for you to ask questions.
Well, before we do that,
Yeah.
Deb asked me to comment on the rough road into Side Bay, and then of course she drove back out. And it wasn't just, it was rough, but no, dirt roads are like that, but there was potholing and rough. And she had to get 2 new wheels. When we were driving back, I started noticing it was shuddering a bit. And of course, I had shudder issues with one of my cars, and it was the front wheel bearings. I said, why don't you go get this checked? And she had to, they were bent from hitting potholes.
You recommend a truck?
Yeah, good for that.
One of those F-250s.
Or you go fast like Lee.
Yeah.
She kind of skips around or something.
And you didn't get any damage.
Still working.
Okay, so are you you ready to leave right now to head for the North Coast? So what kind of questions do you have? Because we wanted to respond to you too. This was kind of our...
Talk to you a little bit about planning food for a trip that long.
Oh, good question for...
Alan lives on peanut butter. He doesn't buy it.
Yeah, we have different...
Dehydrate. There's a food clinic coming up. We're all pretty avid dehydrators. There's all kinds of stuff you can find in the store, but if you're, and you know what? Other than the food, everything else is going in your kayak if you're going over to Discovery, right? So food is definitely the thing that is intimidating to people. But if you can fit the food clinic in, that might be helpful for you, but dehydrator. And if you want to get into dehydrating, Costco now has the big Excalibur 9-tray dehydrator on for $199. Which is
No way.
Way! And just about anything and you can eat at home. You can eat out there. It looks a little different. No. I do like lasagna and, you know, taco van, right? Yeah, and just, yeah, you can do all kinds of things.
And there's peanut butter, beans of life,
Yeah.
and coffee. You go a long
Yeah.
way with that, my friend.
Cliff
Or
bars.
Cliff bars. My friend over here can live on Cliff bars for an indefinite period of time.
That's what you had for lunch.
Snickers.
Cliff bars and go to the Siska newsletter and there are a lot of recipes that are archived there too. So you don't really need
Food's a
to do
big
the food
topic.
thing, but-
Did you plan on eating fish, and if so, how much fish did you eat?
No.
We did not. And Tony, you caught it. What did you do? How many, did you get some meals out of it with us, or how'd that work?
Yeah, I think I caught 2, right?
Yeah,
It's just a bowl.
And we shared it, yeah.
yeah. You
kind of fish
shouldn't
was it?
really plan on it,
Lingcod.
but you will catch fish when you've
Lingcod.
got
That was
people
lingcod.
like
But Tony, you would say, there, you could have caught something pretty much every day if you needed to.
Oh,
You
sure.
think- I mean, the stuff's easy to pick up.
Right.
There's a big rockfish conservation area in that area too, so.
Yeah,
not-
just work around.
Some areas you can't fish, yeah. Get the rockfish there.
Ready?
I assume you were paying attention to the radio, or were you able to get weather reports?
Yeah, we listened to the Coast Guard continuous marine broadcasting. It was always gale warnings. I should say that it was always gale warnings when we're on the South Brooks and we're listening, we're like looking for a window, you know, a window of less wind to go back. And so then we started contacting people in Victoria. You know, Rob Zacharias, who many of you know, we've done a lot of tripping around the island and stuff, and so he's looking at predict wind as sort of his favorite thing. I remember him telling us at one time, okay, it's all above 20 northwest, except between 3 and 5 o'clock tomorrow morning or the next morning, there's a window, it drops below 20. We're like, forget about it, you know? That's it. But, you know, some people really wanted to get back. We hadn't quite accepted that we're not going to get back, so we're like, surely to God it's going to stop, but it just didn't. So, yeah, continuous marine broadcast was continuously depressing.
2 other kayakers had come around too, 2 soloists had come in a couple of days after we were there, and they said, it's pretty hideous up there. So what we were seeing wasn't really what was happening around the corner. What they were saying was happening was happening.
How reliable was the dark sky?
No, it wasn't too bad. Other people can give
I
their
would agree
impression.
with that.
It was pretty good, and you can be specific. You can position your pick your spot, right? It can be, I mean, and then of course it interpolates from the data that's available from whatever's out there. But it was nice to have another source, but didn't give us any different information.
No bad news.
Yeah, it was pretty much.
Did I hear you say that you have got a water taxi using InReach?
Yeah.
How did that work?
Well, we had his phone number, and so using the phone number, you can send a text message.
So it was a mobile phone number?
Yeah. Yeah, Leo Jack's out of Cayuga. He
Yes.
runs his
But you
boat.
emailed them, did you, or did you?
Yeah, I think you emailed them.
Did I email?
Yeah.
Okay, you can do emails as well.
We always carry a water taxi contact, wherever we go, Broughton's, anywhere. Just put it in your stash and hopefully you don't need it. But I've used it a couple of times.
So there's one in Cayuga, operates out of Fair Harbor as well, that's Leo Jack's Voyager water taxi. And then out of Cole Harbor, there's another one, I can't remember, but
Something salvaged, but I tried at length to contact them before we went, just to have that information. And nobody got back to me. I phoned and I got nobody. I emailed, I got nobody.
so check before you go.
The thing with the weather forecast in that whole northwest area, it's almost always 30 to 35 northwest every day, and you get up and it's like flat calm. So you almost get blasé about it but we couldn't because it was North Brooks, it was Brooks. So, but when you're further south, like Spring Island, and you get this forecast, well, the wind does come on that. I mean, that's why we're on the water early. But that's the thing with Environment Canada on the radio. It's not only is it out further from where we are, it's almost like a recording out there.
Well, it's a bigger area, right? They forecast for a larger,
Absolutely.
But that's
you know,
all you have.
it's from
That's all-
Brooks
that's
down
all
to
you make
Tofino.
That's right. That's right.
They
And
were, so the wind was, it changed to the northwest pattern, but they were calling for bigger winds south of the Brooks. So
Yeah,
it was
because
somewhat confusing, but what happens is it works its way down through a lot of these valleys and just blasts you here. We figured we'd beat it one day, and we were on the water at like 7 in the morning and just crossing over here. We were just gonna explore there. And it was one of the roughest days we had on the water at 7 in the morning. So, yeah, Michael has a skeg boat, and he got pushed way down, and we sort of had to keep in radio contact and meet up that way.
He had to put more weight in his boat.
Yeah.
Rocks.
Kind of a
Stop
lightweight
for
kayak.
rocks.
That's pretty good. Isn't it?
Because that was when our boats were empty. We did that trip, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm wondering how you found debris, like
On the
plastic
beaches?
debris on various beaches, and whether it made a difference north-south brooks.
Other people can respond. On the North Brooks, we met some people like Rael and Joe Nicholson up there when we first arrived, and they were collecting some, but it wasn't a ton. I think there'd already been groups up there from Marine Trails or something probably. We stopped at a pocket beach on our way to Cape Cook Lagoon, right, and spent maybe an hour or so collecting stuff, and then we told them where it was. There was a lot there.
There was.
But actually, there wasn't as much as we'd heard, probably because a lot of cleanups occurred. And Inside Bay and Keith River
We were
estuary.
out there, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering.
South Brooks, there
It was
wasn't
messy.
too much,
Yeah,
was
no,
it?
it was. It was
Lots of
really
junk.
bad, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of
Well,
wood.
we tended to be on big beaches, so it was,
Spread
not
out.
as constant, but yeah, there definitely was lots of crap.
Yeah,
It
not
has been a few
tsunami
years
crap, it
ago,
was like fishing crap, I think.
It's improved though with all the garbage collection that's been done, because when Tony and I went on a trip a few years ago, I was picking up all these plastic bottles, just from, east of our Paradise Cove. There was that one beach we stayed at, and it must have had like 50 plastic bottles, just in the smallest area, and I collected them all together, hoping that I couldn't take them out myself.
Yeah.
But yeah,
John
so
actually
it's
had,
improved a little.
yeah, John actually had a brilliant idea of trying to get people to sponsor these great big garbage bags that you see on the beach, and if they were sort of left at a beach, if there's somewhere for people to put their garbage, or if they're walking by and picking up garbage, maybe they'd get used. Yeah.
I was going to say, if people are traveling beaches and there's a lot of debris, to put it in one spot.
Yeah.
You may not have a bag or whatever, but
Yeah.
if you're out there and want to collect it, which is great, but put it in a ravine or somewhere where it's not going to be blown out again, protected and that kind of thing, and then we can, if BC Marine Trails knows about it, we'll eventually get there.
It's astounding how far up into the bush it gets.
Yeah.
I'd love to go up there and see those storms in the winter. Not paddle them.
Other questions, Edgar? Oh, sorry. Edgar, what'd you?
You contradicted yourself. You said that dark sky forecasting was pretty good, and yet it didn't work for you when you got trapped around the brooks. So I was wondering how far ahead dark sky gives you the forecast, how many days in front?
It'll give you 7 days. You don't need that. It'll give you 3 days with a reasonable confidence interval, I think. It's just that it wasn't telling us anything different. It wasn't giving us, a different story. And I think one of the problems was where we were on the South Brooks looking out, it looked fine. But we had to go out 5 miles and north around for another 2 or 3 miles and then back in, and that was all going to be exposed to this northwest wind that we kept hearing was gale force. Maybe close to the shore wasn't gale, maybe it was only 15 to 20, but according to Rob, around Solander, it was going to be 20 plus. So we're like, no. Eventually we got used to the idea that we weren't going to get back. And I have to tell you, it took us a while to get there, but in heads, but $2,200 split it 8 ways wasn't too bad. This sort of tagline here, extend the range. It was an amazing trip. We went through tons of them.
So that worked out, if you thought about paying $12 a day parking for the number of days that we were there.
There you
go. It wasn't its own system.
Yes.
Given your extended trip, did your food last and that type of thing?
Oh yeah, we planned to be out there all that time. It's just we weren't planning to set for the brooks.
We were actually back a day or two early.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Of the planned trip. Yeah.
We had time, it's just we took a different route than we planned. I'm sorry, Vic, I cut you off.
No, I was just gonna ask, how intimidating was your bear?
He looked at us, did one of these and sat down.
I've never seen a bear do that.
Use your bear?
No, I had it out, I was
Like you had
ready.
it, had it already.
She had it out with the safety off.
Yeah.
Right now. And then, as Michael will tell you, we were like, go away.
Yeah, we were pretty tough, Vic. It's like, okay, Bear, move, move. He's not gonna move, okay, let's go back.
So he sits down like this, and just looked at us. We're like, that's odd. Let's go back. Yo.
Wait, you did to protect your food from the bear?
Yeah, always a good question.
What was that?
What do you do to protect your
There are
food
bear
from
hangs?
bears? What did we do on this trip to protect?
Put it in Alan's tent.
Bear barrels
We
are
carry
great.
bear barrels.
You carry bear barrels?
Yeah.
Or any bear hangs or?
Yeah, we had bear
There was some bear hangs. Who did that?
Yeah, I did. And then,
Yeah.
did anybody else? Because I couldn't fit a bear barrel. Oh.
Is it a tiny boat?
I just changed boats.
Bear barrels are good. I have to say that not everything that attracts a bear theoretically was in those bear barrels.
Yeah.
You know, they say anything smelly, right? And so there was some smelly stuff that wasn't there. But this bear that we saw, he actually was used enough to humans. He didn't mess with us. He'd go into the woods, as Jenny I think said, and go around us and then back on the beach. We were kind of on his route, but he just gave us the beach route. So I think if my experience with bears, you could have the chance encounter, like we did have, it's not good. You could be surprised and things could happen. Cubs, not good. But bears in the wilderness generally, they don't like people, they're gonna stay away from people. Bears around garbage dumps in towns, big problem.
I backpacked quite a bit, and I did the Tattoo Peninsula last year. There's a bear on every beach. And they're really, unless they're habituated, and there aren't enough people in those areas for them to get habituated, they're no problem.
Did you capture food when you were backpacking?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's quite comical sometimes, trying to get that sandbag over the tree, but no, we don't.
And quite frankly, sometimes when you see, it's, to actually get a proper bear hang, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, mostly, I would say 90% of the bear hangs I see are more like a piñata.
Tree climbers
6 feet
have
up.
their own bag,
Yeah.
and I was bringing it.
Yeah.
And we would just tie it.
Get up a good
Sand in a
height.
sock works pretty well, actually.
It's really a matter of finding high enough, out far enough, a good branch. And, you know, people who spend the time can do that, but more often than not you do. You see, it ends up being about that high, and the rope is right there, and if the bear knows anything, it's like, tink, thank you.
That would be a good course suggestion, so bear hangs and hanging tarps.
Yeah, there's real science to it.
Yes.
People have pulley systems. I think Morley has a
Yeah.
few pulleys to lessen the load. How many can you get up there?
You can run a 100-pound load up the tree with.
Mechanical advantage. Or get yourself some bear barrels.
I
Call it a
noticed the
day.
tarps were very neat and tidy too.
Yeah.
Oh, nail them.
Ready?
I was gonna ask about water, whether you found lots of water on the way, or was it spotty, or?
We did. No, we found lots. I think Jenny, you were saying. I can point at it. There's streams everywhere, and this was a dry time. There were actually fires, you know, last summer. So we were there in July, so it was pretty dry. But there are good streams that run all season, and you could filter it, should filter it. But like on that beach we were, it was a fantastic stream.
We still carry a fair amount.
And if you get any rain at all with your tarp, you will have water galore.
Yeah. So we had dumped on first for a few days, and then it got real dry, but I think I was carrying 30 liters.
Water away.
We were throwing it away. We were showering. We were having great
So
time.
John Candace's books have show most of the main water sources that tend not to dry out.
Yeah.
But a couple of years ago, we did a trip where it was really dry. And we thought the littler streams were gonna be dried up, and they weren't. So it's quite interesting, you don't know. But, you know, most of us mark on our charts or, you know, waypoint where water is. And generally on the west coast, there is no lack of.
If you're
You
looking,
just wait till it rains.
if you're looking on the chart and you see a stream with some kind of water body above, you know, a little lake or something like that, that's gonna be usually a regular all-season stream.
Did you see any sea otters?
Yes, we did. Jenny, you had some pictures of it, but I don't think it's.
No, they weren't.
Spring Island.
Spring Island, there's a raft or two, and the Bunsby's, they're there.
Sometimes there's loads at Spring Island too.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
could
there's
be.
a big raft there.
Yeah, over 100.
They were introduced that, I think they were wiped out like.
They were wiped out and then they brought some down from Alaska. And they have taken off. Yeah.
Any others?
And
You're welcome to
they're
stay.
down here.
Oh, more questions, Ed, you're go.
Actually, just a comment, you missed Heater Point, but Heater Point is a really nice campsite
I've
also.
heard that, yeah.
We were gonna get it on the way back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna take that one out.
Something that you might want to consider too, we came across this group of folks up from the States, and they had short playbooks. They had short plastic
Right.
playbooks, because they didn't intend to stay in the area for 3 weeks. They didn't need all the capacity, but they wanted to go do all that rock gardening. So if that's your thing, take a little plastic boat up there and bash it around in the rocks and have some fun that way. With Jenny wound up, you put a $400 hole in your boat? And
It cracked my Kevlar. I hit something. Cost me $400.
Something.
You know, you want to get those things checked out so we don't get.
Yeah, yeah. You ready?
Given the road into Side Bay, would you, same type of trip and scenario, would you still consider Side Bay, or would you consider another option?
Probably Winter Harbor, as John said.
Unless I was with somebody with a big 4x4 with good clearance, I wouldn't go in there. Because that, as John said, that Side Bay main has been decommissioned. I mean, it was that the alder trees were almost touching in places, so you're gonna get your car scratched with branches, much less
And
the
washouts.
potholes.
Well,
I mean,
we were-
rough road
we
is
were in
nothing,
there.
but the potholes were pretty, because it was dampened like because of the alders growing, so it was really hard to see. So unless you're doing, I say, like Lee, with her lightweight cars.
Wasn't that
But Deb seemed to hit every, pothole.
We were in there and lost an oil pan, I think, many thousands of dollars.
Yeah, $1,500 tow or something, I think, was it?
I'm not sure the dollar amount, but it was
Big.
many hundreds.
You're gonna spend that kind of money? Go in a helicopter. Anyway, West Coast Helicopters, what was his name, Wayne?
Wayne.
Ah, great. Out of Port McNeil. So yeah, what we were paying for wasn't just the half hour. He had to come over because dropped us off.
Hey, he had more business, I think I was just a little cash cow.
How long did it take to go from?
Half hour.
Half
It's
hour?
quite humbling. You know, we'd spent 2 weeks.
He charged you for the hour. He
Well,
charged you
I
for
think
a
it
full
was just
hour.
the whole trip, right? So I think it was probably a couple hours for him to do that trip. And,
You
yeah.
know how the plumber charges you before they get in the door?
Yeah.
The helicopter, we were paying for it when it left Fort McNeil.
Yeah, they told us.
Yeah, it's portal.
No, it's their fuel, time.
But you know, in retrospect,
So
you
that's like
could,
an hour rate.
I think, didn't you, John, start to look at maps and say, charts and say, well, you could, if you had a helicopter, look what you could do here, you know?
Forget the mothership to the helicopter.
Makes for some options. Okay, well, thank you for your attention, and I hope you're inspired.
Yeah.
Absolutely.